right. Good morning, everyone. Morning, Diane. Freda, good to see you. All right. So today for Mindset Monday, I want to cover a topic that I'm so passionate about it that I'm pretty confident this is going to be the topic of my next book. And the concept is everybody leads. And so I thought I would start off just by saying, okay, so why is this so important? What does that even mean? And well, here's the way I see it. There's been times in my life where I did not see myself as a leader, even in leadership positions. I coached high school basketball, middle school basketball. At the high school that I was at, we were the number one team in the state when I was coaching there. So it was a very competitive program. I was coaching the sophomores there and helping out with the varsity. And so I was definitely in a leadership role, but I inherently didn't really consider myself to be a leader. And the problem with that is that it stifled my growth. And the reason that it stifled my growth is because I just kind of assumed that I would figure it out. Like I didn't really see myself as like a good leader, I guess is what I said. I knew I was a leader, but I didn't see myself as like a quality leader. I never would have, said, "Oh yeah, I'm a leader and I'm good at it." And no, I was a follower who was in a leadership position. And so what that meant was I was never self-motivated to go get better at what I do at a high level. And so there's times like that in my life where I see myself as a leader and or where I was a leader, but I didn't see myself as a leader, and that stifled my growth because I wasn't going out and finding new resources. There's been other times in my life, more recently, where I have finally leaned into the fact, the idea, whatever, that I am a leader. And the more that I lean into that concept, the more driven I am to find the solutions that I need to find to be better at what I do. And so it's this idea of believing that we are a leader, in my mind, that drives us to go get better at whatever it is that we're doing or whoever we're leading. And so let's define this idea of what is a leader? What does it mean to be a leader? Well, in my opinion, and I don't know, I didn't look it up on Webster's dictionary. Like, I don't know. Webster's dictionary defines it as, I don't know what Webster's defines it as. So I'm just going to define it as how I define it. A leader is somebody who is influencing other people. You could be influencing your family. You could be influencing your friends. You could be influencing the clerk at the grocery store. You could be influencing that person that cut you off in traffic. You could be influencing the mailman. You could be influencing anybody. And so this is why I believe that we're all leaders, because we all influence people all the time. And I'll give you an example of it. Well, I'll give you a couple examples. Number one, here's an example we can all get behind. You're in kind of a decent mood. You go into Starbucks and you go to order your drink, and the person who's taking your order is just like the grumpiest, most miserable person you've ever met. And they're just like, "What do you want?" Immediately, that shifts your energy. Or you're in a really crappy mood and you go in and they're the most bubbliest, happiest. "Hey, how's it going? So good to see you." Brent Gove does this perfectly. Here's an example. Brent Gove just shot a video the other day, a short video. He's about ready to get on the plane. He's literally the last person. He's the only person on the jetway. He's standing outside the door of the plane on the jetway, shooting this video to a group of people. And he looks up the ramp and there's like the final worker coming down, and he's like, "Oh, here she comes. She's going to push me into the plane." He's like, "Oh, look at her smile. She's so great. I love this lady." And the lady was just like, you could just tell it influenced her energy. So by him being positive, it influenced her energy. That's leadership. There's a girl who kind of cut me off the other day skiing, right? Like getting into the lines, you're supposed to like kind of zip her in with each other, and she cut me off and kind of butted in front, and it pissed me off. It influenced my energy. Her actions influenced my energy. She's a leader. She influenced me unintentionally. So the fact of the matter is, we are all leaders all day, every day. And I believe that the sooner that we accept that we are influencing the world, the sooner that we accept that we are leading in some way, shape, or form, the sooner we get better. All around. If we see ourselves as a leader within our team, even if we're not like the team lead, if we see ourselves as a leader, what's that going to do? Well, it's going to force us to see ourselves as an influencer, which means we're going to show up to our meetings with our cameras on time. It means that we are going to ask people out to coffee to see how we can improve their business. It means that we are going to read books that improve our lives, that improve our businesses, because we see ourselves as an influencer and we want to make sure that we are setting the right influence. Conversely, if we do not see ourselves as a leader and we're like, oh, well, I'm just part of the team, I'm just in somebody's downline, I'm just here, then where's our motivation to influence appropriately? There's none. We're just here. We're not influencing anybody. So I can show up late. I can not show up at all. I can forget about the meeting. I can blow it off. I can not go to that luncheon. I can, reschedule that coffee with somebody. I can do all of these things because I'm not influencing anybody. So I can do whatever in the hell I want. I can doom scroll on my phone for 3 hours because I have no motivation to show up in a way that makes the world a better place. So, all right. So that's why I see this as such an important topic, because in my own experience, once I started seeing myself as a leader, that's when things started to get better. So here's one more example that I'll come back to that one. So that's kind of why I think it's important. Now, I want to talk about 3 aspects of leadership and why it's beneficial. So number 1, I'm going to talk about how being a leader makes the world a better place. Number 2, how being a leader makes us better. And number 3, what are some strategies that we can do to become a better leader? So the first thing is how embodying being a leader would make the world a better place. Now, this seems fairly obvious, right? But, I guess I want to put a caveat on that, because once again, we are all leaders, whether we admit it or not. We're influencing people, whether we try to or not. So it's not a matter of whether you are a leader. It's a matter of whether you see yourself as a leader, as an influencer. But if we don't see ourselves as a leader, we can make the world better. We can make the world worse. If we're grumpy, if we're mean, if we stand people up, if we don't hold to our word, we're a leader. We're just leading it in that direction. So the question is that the way that you want to lead? So the caveat here is how does being a leader make the world a better place? That's the wrong way of putting it. It's how does seeing ourselves as a leader and taking that responsibility seriously, how does that make the world a better place? Well, lots of different ways. Sometimes it can just be the way that we energetically show up that impacts another person. Sometimes it can be picking up that piece of trash when you're walking down the street and you see a piece of trash blowing and you pick it up, and somebody happens to see you pick up that piece of trash and they go, I've done this before. I've seen somebody pick something up and I'm like, that was cool. I should really do that more. And I actually do it more because I saw somebody else do it. So how does being a leader or seeing ourselves as a leader make the world a better place? I don't know. There's really no way to tell, right? You go in and Brent Gove. How did Brent make the world a better place by improving that lady's moment working in the airport? I don't know, but I guarantee you when she was driving home, she was in a better mood. I guarantee you, if a passenger was being a jerk, she handled it a little bit differently because her energy was a little bit differently. I guarantee you that that positive impact had some kind of butterfly effect in the world. And that's really all that matters. Brent Gove doesn't have control over how that lady moves forward from there, but he does have control over how he impacts her. And how does that make the world a better place? We don't know. But I believe that if we continue to see ourselves as a leader over an extended period of time, we are always looking for opportunities to lead with integrity, to lead with intention, then we are naturally going to make the world a better place. We are going to bring people into a higher energy. We are going to make the world maybe cleaner. Here's the other thing that I believe when we see ourselves as a leader is that when we see ourselves as a leader, we see ourselves as an influencer, we see that we have the opportunity to influence people in a positive way. So what does that do? Well, it opens up a whole new level of creativity, a whole new level of thinking in our own life that, well, I guess I'll just leave it at that. It opens up a whole new level of creativity. It gets us to start thinking about how can we make the world a better place. It gets us to start thinking about like, what classes could I teach, or who could I go meet up with, or what kind of groups could I start, or whatever. When we see ourselves as an influencer, like our creative juices start to flow, it can actually energize us, and then we can put that energy out into the world. And so, how does it make the world a better place? Well, that's up to you, right? And it's about leading by example. It's about constantly looking for ways to make the world a better place, but you do it in your own unique way. Here's another example of, this is another Brent Gove example, just happens to be. So I'm doing some coaching stuff with him in a group. And one of the things that I had discovered about Brent Gove is that he has really high energy. He leads with his heart. And, you know, I thought he was kind of one of those guys that was just like, go, 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 go. And he kind of is. But, man, he really cares about people. And I've been leading with my head for a really long time. And I've had some people who are close to me telling me I need to lead with my heart more. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Well, Brent Gove showing up the way that he has been showing up is impacting me. It's influencing me. I'm looking at him going, that's what it looks like to lead with your heart. So how does Brent Gove's, you know, showing up and seeing himself as a leader and showing up in an authentic way, how is it impacting the world? Well, it's inspiring me. It's making me better. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go out and I'm going to teach this right here. I'm going to go talk to my team. I'm going to find other people that I can influence and get them to lead with their heart and get them to make the world a better place. So eventually Brent Gove becomes irrelevant in the equation because I take the ball and I run with it and I hand it to somebody else and they take the ball and they run with it. So how does being a leader impact the world? I don't know. There's no way to tell. But if we're serious about it and we really see ourselves as a leader and we really try to impact and really try to lead by example, all I know is the world's going to be a better place. If everybody sees themselves as a leader, the world is going to be a better place. And we just make it better by the way that we show up. So that's how we make the world a better place. So let's take it a step further. How does seeing ourselves as a leader make us better? So when I was coaching, I was also a science teacher. I taught 8th grade science. And when I first got hired, I got hired to be an earth science teacher. And I love earth science. I almost became a volcanologist. I almost became a meteorologist. Like these are, you know, my dad was a geological engineer. I used to go caving, spelunking when I was younger. Like I love earth science. And that's what I got hired for. Well, about 3 or 4 years into my career, they said, hey, guess what? You're going to teach physical science, which is physics and chemistry. I was always horrible at chemistry. I got like D's in high school and in college. I took as little chemistry as I could. I barely passed those classes. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't do it. Well, now I had to teach it. And I was going to stand in front of 150 8th graders every single day and have to teach them chemistry. Guess what? I learned chemistry real freaking fast. because nobody wants to be standing in front of a room of eighth graders, not knowing what they're talking about. And not to mention a bunch of the kids that were in my class, their parents worked at Lockheed Martin. So they were literally rocket scientists. Yeah, those were my students. And so it was, yeah, I was very motivated to learn chemistry. And so when we look at that situation, see, I knew that I was in a position of leadership there. And it was being in that leadership position, that uncomfortableness of the situation that I was in, and seeing myself not as a victim, not as somebody who was like, oh man, this is going to go terribly. No, I was like, okay, I got to figure this out because I'm not going to let these kids down. That is a leadership position. That is a leadership mindset. And guess what it did? It made me better. It forced me to get out of my comfort zone and do something that I wouldn't normally do. Right now, we've got a team, Rialto Partners. And, I do see myself as a leader on that team. I see lots of people as leaders on that team. But just being tied in with them makes me better. How can I support them better? How can I communicate better? How can I make sure I'm bringing in the right people? How can I make sure our culture stays intact? And so it's all of these questions that I constantly ask myself that make me better at what I do. And a lot of times, in order to answer those questions, it's not as simple as like, okay, well, here's the nuts and bolts, and I got to do this and I got to do that. That's part of it. But the other part of it is an internal dialogue, right? I've got a lot of stuff going on. And so I've got to communicate with myself. I've got to learn how to communicate with myself at a much higher level than I did before, just so I don't lose my mind. And I've got to be able to learn things on a much deeper level, right? I got to understand it at a level 10 to be able to teach it at a level 7. I got to understand it at a level 15 to teach it at a level 10. And so I've got to be better at what I do, both externally and internally, if I'm going to influence my team in an intentional way. If I see somebody pick trash up off the street, I've got to set an intention within myself to do it as well. I can't just say, oh yeah, that's a really cool thing, I should probably do that. It'll never happen. But if I see myself as a leader, if I see myself as leading by example, by setting an example, then guess what? I'm going to be much more motivated to set that intention within my mind. So when I see a piece of trash, I pick it up and throw it in the garbage. You better believe the next time that I'm talking with somebody at the airport, Brent Gove's example is going to be in the forefront of my mind, because that's the way that I want to show up. That's the way that I want to impact the world. And so by seeing myself as somebody who sets an example, by seeing myself as somebody who influences, by seeing myself as a leader, I'm going to show up differently, and I'm going to impact more people's lives in a positive way, which means I have to do work as well to make that happen. So it makes me better. So there's a huge advantage, not only for the world, but for ourselves. So now let's just dive in a little bit to how to become a better leader. Now, these are just ideas. And I know most of you guys don't have your cameras on, but I'm just kind of curious. You can raise your virtual hand or whatever. How many of you see yourselves as leaders? Kind of, sort of, yeah. Who here has imposter syndrome when it comes to calling yourself a leader? Like, who am I to say I'm a leader? Yeah, Diane, that's a problem for me. It's really a problem for me. That is what stopped me from admitting that I'm a leader. There's no question about it. We're all leaders. So the sooner we realize, the reason that I bring this up is because that's the biggest hurdle, in my opinion, to actually becoming a leader or seeing ourselves as a leader, is this idea of, well, who cares what I think? Like, who am I to be so arrogant to say that I'm a leader? Well, I'm giving you permission to say that because you're already leading. You are already influencing people. You are already setting an example. You are already a leader. All you have to do is recognize that and understand that whether you call yourself a leader or not, you are. So you might as well call yourself a leader. You might as well see yourself as a leader. You might as well let this imposter syndrome go by the wayside because we're all leaders. How are you going to be an imposter if you already are? So I just want to put that out there. So the reason that I bring all of that up is because I'm going to give some ideas on how to become a better leader. And these are some ideas that I've come up with. Are they the ideas? No. Are they the right ideas? Not necessarily, but there's some ideas. And that at the end of the day is really all that matters. So I could sit here and say, well, I'm an imposter. Who am I to tell you how to become a better leader? And just end the call, right? I can do that. But I'm choosing to put myself into a position where I don't have all the answers, but I do have some. And I'm going to be confident enough to admit that I have some solutions. And you can take those solutions or you can not take those solutions. That's up to you. And there's different ways to do this. I'm just going to give some of the solutions. So I'm going to throw some ideas in. There's a really, really, really good book out there by John Maxwell called High Road Leadership. And so he kind of talks about the difference between high road leadership and low road leadership. It's a really great book on leadership. You might want to check that out. So just to summarize some of the ideas in that book, if I had to, I would say that his big takeaways, or my big takeaways from his book, are that great leaders, high road leaders, put people first. They put other people first in everything that they do. And the reason that that's so important is because when we put other people first, we are trying to find ways to support them. And by supporting them, we're influencing the world in a natural or in a good way, and it makes us feel great. So we're making the world better. It makes us feel great. So that's a big part of it, is just helping other people grow. The other big part of it is constantly trying to improve in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't really matter how, but just trying to make ourselves better. And it's in that process of making ourselves better that we are setting an example for other people. You know, anybody who's led anybody knows how frustrating it is when you are actively trying to push somebody to do something. Hey, all you got to do is this, this, and this. And they go, yeah, I get it. And then they don't do anything with it. It's like crazy frustrating. So how do we get people to move when we're not moving? At least at the end of the day, if we are setting an example, we are constantly improving ourselves. We are setting the example. We are showing somebody else how to make their life better through example. That is the best way to motivate somebody else to do something. So that's a big part of what he talks about is, you know, always looking for, you know, always putting the other people first. And he kind of rephrases it a lot of different ways, but that's basically what my takeaways were. And then lead by example. And that's kind of his big difference between high road leadership and low road leadership, right? Low road leadership is, in my opinion, low road leadership is a very unintentional or very self-serving style of leadership. It just that, once again, everybody's a leader. Where are you on that spectrum? Anyway, okay. So some other ways to become a better leader. So read and watch a lot of content. You know, I follow Ed Milet very closely. He's really good. Jay Shetty's really good. They both kind of combine this leadership ideas with tactical strategies, with business stuff and things like that. So those are really good people to watch. I read a lot of books. I actually do a lot of Audible. I do read some books, but I do a lot of Audible. I listen to it while I drive. And for me, that's just as impactful. I fall asleep when I read, so I just prefer to listen to it. But I'm constantly taking in new information so that I can get better. And then the last thing that I'll mention here on how to become a better leader is to surround ourselves with inspiring people. I've already talked a little bit about my experiences with Brent Gove being in this coaching program that I'm doing, and how just he didn't do anything specific to Dan. He was just being authentic. He was just being himself. And I'm watching him going, yeah, I want to be more like that. I want more energy like that. Like, I want to lead like that. That's freaking great. And so he's making me better through just contact, just because we're connecting with each other. I went out to dinner. My wife and I went out to dinner this weekend with some new friends, another couple, and it was so much fun. These are people who are very high energy. They're very successful. And, you know, we left that dinner like, that was a lot of fun. You know, let's go hang out with them again. There's something about hanging out with people who are doing the things that we want to do that pull us along. Like, I don't want to let Brent down. I don't want to let my wife down. I don't want to let my kids down. You know, sometimes my son will be like, hey, Dad, like, it's going to be like when I start getting frustrated, he's like, it's going to be okay. He's 14. He's like, Dad, it's going to be okay. And he gives me the same advice that I give him. I don't want to let him down. And so I want to be surrounded by people like that will challenge me, that will push me. Because at the end of the day, being an intentional leader, being a good leader means that we are constantly trying to improve. And one of the best ways to do that is to surround ourselves with great people. And the people that bring us down, the energy vampires, we don't have to be mean to them, but we know if they're going to change or not. And if they're not, if they're dragging us down, if our goal is really to be an intentional leader, to influence people in a positive way, unfortunately, we got to step away from them. We've got to find our people who are going to pull us forward so that we can go find other people. Because remember, if we want to teach somebody how to be a 7, we've got to be a 10. So we've got to hang out with 10s or 15s to teach people how to be a 7. And when we get to a 15, now we can teach people how to be a 10. So we've got to be able to have people who pull us or push us so that we can go and grab other people and pay it forward. So the people that we surround ourselves with is hugely important in terms of being a good leader. So once again, I'll just summarize with this. I believe this is such an important topic because we are all leaders, whether we see it or not. So I would challenge you to just see yourself as the leader that you are and intentionally do everything you can to intentionally impact the world in a positive way. And if everybody was doing that, just think of how awesome our world would be. So appreciate you guys being here early on a Monday morning. That's all I got for you. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.